be about Flesh Pit National Park. Flesh Pit National Park is a fictional place that was created by writer and illustrator Trevor Roberts. He released a collection of brochures, posters, images and letters, which together gives us a good idea of what this flesh pit is, its backstory, and the unusual discoveries that comes with it. Trevor says, the mystery flesh pit is the name given to a bizarre natural geobiological feature discovered in the Permian Basin region of West Texas in the early 1970s. The pit is characterized as an enormous subterranean organism of indeterminate size and origin, embedded deep within the earth, displaying a vast array of highly unusual and often disturbing phenomena within its vast internal anatomy. Following its initial discovery and subsequent survey exploration missions, the surface orifice of the mystery flesh pit was enlarged and internal sections were slowly reinforced and developed by the Anodyne Deep Earth Mining Corporation, who opened the pit as a tourist attraction in 1976. In the early 1980s, the site was absorbed into the National Park System, which operated and maintained the mystery flesh pit. So let's start with the backstory. In May 1973, a letter was written to a Mr. Colton Fleming about the pit's discovery. The letter says, Dear Colton, now you know more than most how I may be prone to hyperbole on occasion, but those Whitmer boys that called on Monday are onto something amazing. I mean really, truly amazing. This isn't any mineral deposit, Colton. At least not like anything I've seen. I went ahead and sent some samples for you and Chris to start looking at. I didn't think you all would believe me if I didn't. This thing that those old boys found is some kind of organic deposit that must go down at least 500 or 600 feet by my reckoning. Not a fungus either. This thing breathes and makes sounds, same as any other creature. And it bleeds. God, how it bleeds, Colton. It's a mess out there. John and some of the others think it might be something from outer space. Most of the hombres we brought out to start the excavation call it a Diablo de Barjo, and are real wary of going too close to what we figure must be the mouth of this thing. Right now, I don't think I care what it is or where it came from. I'm an oil man, and I think we're onto something real big out there. Once you and Chris start looking at these samples, go ahead and give Lenny a call to send out his crew, and make sure they bring at least 4 excavators. Pay them whatever they ask to make it fast. Also, there's a card in here for a fella in Carlsbad with some pretty heavy-duty spelunking gear. Pay him whatever he wants to get here by Friday or Saturday. I'll call Beverly to have her put our other jobs on hold for the next 3 weeks, but you should remind her anyway. We need to move real fast on this. Dale Whitmer already left this morning to find someone in Gumption to come take some photos. It'll be a circus once that happens. God help us if the feds come and lock it down. There's something about this thing that's important, and I don't want to see something this special get in the hands of some goddamn game warden. Regards, A few months later, after that letter, Mr. Jackson wrote a second letter, which read, "Dear Colton, things are really starting to take off down here. At around 3 or so last night, we broke a new depth record of 1,800 feet vertical descent from the moor. It's a damn shame you and other folks are so spooked by this bit. To be down there in it really is something else. Now don't misunderstand, I'm not saying it's easy. God almighty, it is tough getting around down. It's gullet and such. A man's got to have an iron constitution or a mighty thick skull, and lucky me that the good Lord has seen it to bless me with both. Some of these boys here have rigged up scuba gear, and we've been able to squeeze around down there with some effort. Giant muscles, giant bones, in it so big you could drive a trailer truck through. Strange critters scuttling around in the dark down here too. Big bugs and germs and worms and other queer things that you wouldn't believe. Some kind of crab thing the size of a coyote crept out a week and a half ago, and we caught it crawling around the feed trailer. I got a good look at it before one of Dale's boys shot at it and it skittered away. We had the funeral for the third rust-bound to pass away this month on Tuesday. The papers are already talking gossip more than I like, and I'm hopeful that Bill and the other attorneys can keep the vultures and feds at bay. People don't understand until they've seen it and been down inside it, Colton. We're pioneers and explorers here. This is good work. This is God's work. Nobody knows what this mystery pit is, or what it eats, or how long it's been here. We need some guys with real smarts, not oilmen, doctors, scientists, good decent folks who would have nothing to do with this. I'm mighty glad that you've taken responsibility for holding down the fort back home, while I'm out here playing the cowboy. You're a good man, Colton. The kind of quality individual they don't make anymore. Maybe I'm hoping I can find some of that goodness myself someday. Maybe down in the belly of this beast. Give Samantha and the baby my regards, Jim Jackson. P.S. There's a company out of Fort Worth that I've called up to help with the exploration. I've attached their card to this letter. Give their geologist a call and let them know the details. I'm told they're very good at what they do. Attached is the business card for Anodyne, the deep earth mining company. This profile survey is one of many examples produced early on in the development of the national park. The new Jackson survey, conducted by James Jackson, it combined many prior, smaller surveys obtained by Jackson's team. This survey was printed in several national publications and was a primary piece of marketing until an updated, computer-aided survey was conducted in 1980. Not long after the discovery of the pit, it is made into a tourist attraction visitor says discover verdant forests, majestic scenery, and cosmic terror. Enjoy legendary trout fishing, geotectonic carnal moans, broken philosophy, backcountry hiking and camping. So how deep is this pit? The depth record for a human was achieved in 1979 by an expedition team which was able to reach an unprecedented depth of 19,102 meters below the entry orifice, surpassing the previously held record of 12,117 meters. At depths below 19,000 meters, the anatomy of the pit begins to noticeably change and become much less anatomically similar to other surface forms of life. Explorations beyond these depths are extremely challenging due to the exotic and largely unknown nature of the pit's lower anatomy. Unmanned expendable probe vehicles have been able to surpass the 19,000 meter depth. However, poor communication quality over anything but telecables have made further exploration cost prohibitive. It's hypothesized the pit may well extend into the Earth's mantle, with many scientists suggesting that the organism may be native to the interior of the planet, having merely surfaced to the upper tectonic plates for unknown reasons. An aerial photo of the pit and surrounding site captures the scale of work that took place from 1978 to 1981 in order to develop and improve the park's interior infrastructure. This is what it looks like from the outside. Here we have a visitor map. It shows the rim trail that people use to walk around the outside of the mouth. If you have more time, you can take a trip on one of their descent gondolas to the interior. Also on this visitor map, you get a hint of the possible dangers that lie inside. It says hiking off trail within the park is dangerous. Mystery Flesh National Park occupies the living and active internal anatomy of the Permian Basin superorganism. Unreinforced areas within the superorganism are lethal and inhospitable to human life. Follow all warning signs and precautions while inside the park. On the interior trail map, there are many sights to see from the terraced hot pools, gastric seas, septum falls, and bronchial forests. But before we look at that, if you are thinking of visiting the Flesh Pit Park, first we should read the safety leaflet. It says, your visit to the Mystery Flesh Pit can be a most pleasurable and rewarding experience, or it can be a time of vexation, distress, or even tragedy. Much depends on how you and your family observe these simple guidelines and avoid designated hazards. Take a minute to read these simple but important safety rules, then go on to a pleasant park experience. Visitors and wildlife within the Mystery Flesh Pit often frequent the same areas within the park. It is likely that park wildlife and visitors will encounter one another, but by remaining calm and following the basic advice of experienced veterinobiologists, you increase the odds of a positive outcome for both yourself and the wildlife. All visitors who partake on self-guided excursions beyond reinforced and enclosed trails within the Mystery Flesh Pit are required to attend an orientation at the lower visitor center. During this orientation, introduced to visitors due to high fauna activities or recent wildlife-human encounters. It is important to be aware when camping and hiking within the Mystery Flesh Pit and to avoid wildlife foraging areas. Contact park staff to obtain current information on wildlife safety issues. Note: once inside the greater anatomy of the pit, rangers may be able to assist you, but ultimately you are on your own. Identifying park wildlife. Fungal growth. While not typically considered wildlife, large fungal colonies are commonly encountered throughout the Mystery Flesh Pit and should be treated as potentially dangerous. Many varieties of fungal growths exist native to the pit, though they all share a few common characteristics, such as proximity to amniotic spring fluid bladders, as well as spores, which are toxic to humans. Park staff routinely prune known fungal outcroppings, which attempt to grow near developed areas of human activity. But visitors should remain alert so as not to accidentally stumble or fall into a colony. Compound surface fauna. On rare occasions, abyssal copepods and other park wildlife will venture outside of the pit and pull surface animals such as deer, livestock, coyotes and rabbits into the Mystery Flesh Pit. If not eaten by park fauna, these animals may undergo a fascinating phenomenon known as anatomical amalgamation. This process, which is not fully understood yet by park scientists, results in the creation of a compound organism, which is a hybrid of constituent surface animals. No two of these amalgamations are the same, though the resulting physiology often results in similar conditions, such as partial fusing of major body elements and relocation of internal organs to locations on the exterior of the body. Because of the gruesome and seemingly haphazard nature of the combinations, many compound surface fauna do not live beyond a few hours or days from the time when they are discovered. Should you encounter a shambling compound surface fauna, please do not feed it or otherwise engage in activity which could prolong its suffering. Note: in the extremely unlikely event that you encounter an amalgamation containing one or more human constituent organisms, contact a park ranger immediately via one of the emergency telephones installed along trail routes. Macrobacteria. The most common organism encountered by park visitors during excursions into the park are the various subspecies of macrobacteria. While resembling their microscopic counterparts, these creatures are multicellular and reach sizes of up to 12 feet across. The feeding mechanism of macrobacteria is believed to be related to cystic nutrient ganglions found within the Mystery Flesh Pit, around which macrobacteria congregate in substantial numbers. Osmotic diffusion of proteins, lipids, and minerals from within these ganglia into the macrobacteria appear to drive their asexual reproduction capability. Macrobacteria often migrate in colonies consisting of many dozens of individuals throughout feeding areas within the pit's anatomy. Though generally passive in nature, macrobacteria are aggressively territorial on feeding zones while remaining somewhat protected from conventional deterrents such as firearms and electric discharge weapons. Abyssal copepods are considered hazardous to the safety and well-being of park staff, park visitors, as well as commercial mining operations within Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. Basic safety tips. As the number of visitors to the Mystery Flesh Pit increases, so does the number of human-to-wildlife encounters. The vast majority of these encounters do not result in wildlife injury or fatality. You can help prevent injury to yourself, to others, and to park infrastructure by taking a few basic precautions. Minimize disturbance of anatomical fauna. If you see flora or fauna within the park and it does not appear to notice you, back out of sight and change your course. Move out of the area or quietly observe at a safe distance without approaching or otherwise disturbing it. Disturbance is evident whenever a wildlife changes their behavior because of you. If it stops eating and looks up, raises its antenna, secretes scent enzyme, or begins making territorial clicks while trying to locate you, you are too close. While many life forms within the pit seem to be tolerant of human presence at distances further than 200 yards, each creature is different. Use telephoto lenses and endoscopes where possible. Allow migrating bacteria colonies to pass by your camp undisturbed. If you have made sure that the wildlife is aware of your presence, so it is not surprised, and have kept all of your gear under your direct control, allow any organism you encounter to travel unhindered. You may just be afforded the opportunity to safely observe these amazing creatures in their natural environment. Exercise proper equipment handling. Do not leave equipment unattended. This includes tent frames, tents, climbing cleats, bottles, and weapons. Consider using a portable electric fence to discourage aggressive wildlife, such as copepods, from investigating your camp. In areas with damage to amniotic bladders, minimize the amount of fluid that contaminates your clothes and gear. Many life forms within the pit have extraordinary sense of smell and depend on phosphoproteins within the fluid in order to survive. Some will attempt to hunt you if they smell strong concentrations on your person or equipment. One of the warning signs inside the pit reads, "Caution. The venturial environment beyond this bulkhead constitutes the interior systems of a living organism. This environment is actively hostile to human life. Serious injury and death may occur without proper training and equipment." Here are some of the other creatures you'll find in the flesh pit. This chart and many others like it were produced by the Park Service as an educational tool for use in classrooms, museums, and universities. Popular among natural history enthusiasts, the illustrations featured on these posters were the result of intensive expeditions and surveys into the Mystery Flesh Pit. While visitors are almost certain to encounter common fauna, such as the myriad of macrobacteria subspecies, many organisms such as the Venice shamble and abyssal copepod tend to evade trails and high traffic areas, making them difficult to spot. As a practical tool, these illustrations were useful in training wildlife management rangers when safely dispatching a dangerous organism. For this reason, the designers of this and other charts attempt to represent the scale the abyssal copepod. It is estimated to grow up to 15 to 20 feet tall. They are predatory creatures that live long lives, with some specimens living well over 250 years, and survive by hunting other life forms. They occasionally venture outside of the pit and pull surface animals into the pit to be eaten. Presumably, they also consume fluid with a strong concentration of phosphoprotein that are within amniotic bladders in the pit. Similar to many of the other life forms in the pit, which all have a strong sense of smell, and some even attempted to hunt humans covered in this amniotic fluid. The amorphous shame on the left are clumps of organs that live their whole lives in the folds of the flesh pit. Instead of foraging for food, they extend a tube-like appendage to drink up the liquid aminos and proteins from nutrient sacs. This creature was said to have evolved from an ancestor of the weasel, as you can see from this diagram. There is also the 13-footed mesocleal tridicapod to look out for. Though commonly considered a nuisance animal, the mesocleo tridicapod is a fascinating species which plays an important role within the unique ecosystem of the pit. They are hemovores who obtain vital nutrients directly from the organic red blood of the mystery flesh pit. Most mouth parts enable tridicopods to open incisions in coronary arteries with surgical precision, preventing bleeding and infection. Using two special tubes, tridicopods ingest fresh red blood and filter out nutrients before ejecting the filtered blood back into the artery. When finished, a resin is secreted from a special gland to seal the wound before moving on to a new feeding site. A few more things to be aware of. Be sure to drink plenty of water while inside the pit, because it is known to leach moisture. Make sure to stay on marked trails. Venturing off the path, you may get lost and or digested within unreinforced organs. Here is a picture of one of the fully enclosed trails, offering unparalleled access to the interior of the park to people of all physical conditions. These trails were some of the most expensive to construct and maintain. Now that you're aware of the possible risks and dangers, you're ready to enter the Mystery Flesh Pit. Your encounter with Mystery Flesh Pit National Park begins in the Permian Basin Desert of West Texas. Beyond the familiar surroundings of rugged brush and broad plains is a gateway into another world, away from sunlight, away from the still ground, away from the comfort of the surface world, lies the sublime wonder and terror of the Mystery Flesh Pit. It is an incomparable realm of gigantic anatomical formations and extraordinarily introspective voyages deep into the soul of those who venture within. The first tethered oil workers who entered the pit had no idea what to expect as they slid, crawled, and were swallowed down into the darkness. Today, many wonders of the Mystery Flesh Pit are well known, yet the experience of exploring its depth is every bit as exciting. On occasion, lucky park visitors may observe a natural phenomenon as fascinating as the flesh pit itself, in what scientists think to be an immune response to continued dilation. The pit entry orifice begins to violently choke and spasm against retaining braces. This impressive display of vigor, which may last as long as 20 minutes, often features otherworldly tectonic Choking fits usually occur following extensive engineering improvements within the pit. Due to gastric ejecta from the pit entry orifice, eye protection is recommended when directly viewing a spasm fit. Gateway into the deep. Your adventure into the wonder and magnificence of the Mystery Flesh Pit begins as your enclosed gondola begins to descend down into the darkness, away from the blistering heat and light of the Permian Basin. Just when the 20-minute twisting and turning ride down into the maw of this immense organism feels like it might never end, an illuminated structure comes into view beneath your feet. Step out of the elevator car and into the well-lit and comfortable lobby of the lower visitor center, your gateway to an unforgettable visit to one of the world's most unique natural wonders. In the lower visitor center, you can find a variety of amenities, a gift shop, museum, garden, restrooms and food outlets, including a Burger King and Baskin Robbins. There were rumors circulating that these restaurants served flesh from either the superorganism or the wildlife within it. However, these rumors were not true. No restaurant within the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park has ever served these items for two main reasons. One, the flesh pit meat, as well as flesh from nearly every other species found within, is very tough and oily, which is quite unpleasant. Even when cooked with a generous amount of seasoning, the mineral-like flavor of the flesh pit meat was unpalatable to even the most adventurous foodies. The second reason is after 1980, intentional, unauthorized damage to either the superorganism or wildlife inside constituted felony trespass and destruction of government property. Also in the visitor center is an interfaith chapel which could be rented for wedding ceremonies. An ordained minister was contracted to be on site within operating hours. The addition of several hospitality facilities in the late 1980s only increased the annual instances of weddings and on-site receptions. The Flesh Pit was, for some reason, a very popular destination to officiate and consummate marriages. Once you have descended in your gondola, you will hear deep thumping throughout the flesh pit, named the red seismics. It is the sound of massive biological processes. The enormous circulatory systems of the Permian Basin superorganism, driven by distant and titanic geothermal hearts, combine with sounds from shifting bone structures to create a constant low-frequency hum called red seismic frequencies. Scientists carefully study red seismics to learn more about the Mystery Flesh Pit, much like a doctor using a stethoscope. While disconcerting at first, many who work within the park for long periods have reported that the constant sounds become comforting. First, let's dive into the amniotic thermal springs. Located deep in the warmer crypts of the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, the amniotic thermal springs are renowned worldwide for their delightful effects on mind, body and spirit. First discovered during the early exploration of the Mystery Flesh Pit in the 1970s, the amniotic thermal baths were one of the earliest draws to the park. Many people traveled across the country to seek out the mystical properties of the healing baths, which were rumored to heal ailments and cure disease. Many others, calling them pleasure domes, enjoyed the aphrodisiacal effects of the amniotic fluids. Today, this tradition continues for modern bathers who use the springs medicinally or recreationally. The poster goes into more detail about what this fluid is. Though it is commonly called amniotic fluid, this semi-opaque, slippery, luminescent liquid produced within these organic thermal springs has little in common with fluid produced by pregnant mammals. Park geobiologists use the term ballast, as it is theorized that the fluid is produced by the mystery flesh pit as a way to regulate the endocrine systems of the superorganism. Since its discovery, amniotic spring fluid has been a highly sought-after resource and is tightly regulated by the National Park Service. The unique chemical properties of the liquid have been shown in clinical studies to mildly reverse cell degradation due to factors such as cancer or aging. Many park visitors report additional benefits of bathing, such as decreased joint pain, healthier skin, weight loss, and vision improvement. A secondary and infamous property of the amniotic spring fluid are the psychoactive and aphrodisiacal effects it has on those who consume or topically apply it. Bathers describe a gentle euphoric sensation when soaking in higher potency springs, with the effects of concentrated exposure being well documented by several best-selling short films, many of which are available for purchase. Beyond the physical sensations, visitors often claim that they develop deep emotional bonds with those they interact with while inside the thermal springs. Amniotic spring fluid is safe to eat and drink, and has enjoyed limited exposure as an additive to a variety of popular consumer foodstuffs. While the fact remains that the mystery flesh pit is an ancient and enormous superorganism of indeterminate origin, visitors can rest easy knowing that every effort has been made to make the amniotic thermal springs a safe and secure natural experience. The mechanical structures you see pressed into the fleshy walls of the bath are called geodesic retaining frames and are an integral part of how park engineers create the spacious and accessible thermal baths. Networks of reinforced trails, much like those found in other areas of the park, provide well-lit and even walking surfaces. In the unlikely event that one of these structures becomes compromised, visitors are instructed to immediately use one of the nearby blue emergency phones to alert park staff. If you encounter any wildlife within the springs, please alert a park ranger or use one of the emergency blue telephones located throughout the springs. Please do not approach or antagonize any park wildlife. It was noted that there is a common misconception that due to the nature of the amniotic thermal springs and their effects, there must have been a surplus of children conceived within the mystery flesh pit. On the contrary, the spermicidal effects of the ballast were a notorious reason for the thermal springs' lucrative operation. Now to the south side of the amniotic baths lie the gastric seas, on which a resort was built called the Intra-Park Wellness Resort. Here we have an information guide for the wellness resort. On the first page, it has a warning access to exterior service areas on the gastric sea side of the resort building. These areas are subject to continual exposure to corrosive and toxic gastric chemicals, which are lethal to human life. Exterior surfaces are slippery and present opportunities to slip off the superstructure and into the gastric sea. The resort building is hermetically sealed for your protection. The resort has its own version of amniotic springs, modeled after the original ballast bulbs in the amniotic thermal springs, but are reinterpreted in soothing contemporary materials for a calming bathing experience. The baths within the thermal spa feature full potency ballasts. The spa offers a number of treatments using the amniotic fluid in gels, manicures, and other blends for certain treatments. From the moment the properties of amniotic ballast were realized, there was a rush to export the experience of bathing in the natural thermal springs of the Mystery Flesh Pit into the home. This was difficult as the ballast fluid began losing some of its potency when removed from the venereal environment. It was possible through a combined strategy of pressurization, heating, concentration, and chemical stabilization. Such efforts were never cheap or easily portable. As a result, only the wealthy ever enjoyed the full benefits of ballast bathing outside of the flesh pit, which ended up driving more and more visitors to the park as the health and recreational value of ballasts became more widespread. To the north of the amniotic thermal springs is the southern bronchial forest, which is essentially one of the lungs of this superorganism. One of the selling points of this attraction is that the air feels different here. The tagline of this poster is "A living, breathing forest." It says, "Take in the cool air as it crushes around you. Breathe in the living history of hundreds of millions of years of natural evolution and adaptation." The southern bronchial forest, like all bronchial forests within the Mystery Flesh Pit, are enormous respiratory organs that fulfill a variety of roles in a highly complex and interdependent ecosystem of the Permian Basin superorganism. Each year, millions of tons of gases, such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, and nitrogen, are exchanged within these colossal organs in slow breaths. These long breaths fluctuate with the changing of the seasons. It takes about 6 months for just one of these lungs to fully inhale or exhale. During the inhalation process, cool air slowly inflates the many thousands of bronchioles within the forest. This provides the Permian Basin superorganism with oxygen and a large volume of relatively cold winter air. Conversely, during the warmer summer months, a slow exhalation process disperses buildups of carbon dioxide and waste heat. The thermal exchange of waste heat into the outer atmosphere is a vital way in which the Mystery Flesh Pit is able to maintain its metabolic processes. Hiking in the bronchial forests. Unlike many of the unique environments found within Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, the bronchial forests exhibit a climate that is nominally habitable to humans. Fresh, oxygenated air drawn in from the surface of the park allows visitors to experience the stunning vistas and breathtaking scenery of this geopark. strong hikers and that a hike into a bronchial forest is easy. Know your limits. Note, trails are closed to the public from May until September each year as the Permian Basin superorganism completes an exhalation cycle. During exhalation, excessive carbon dioxide concentration, excessive heat, and aggressive behavioral patterns of local wildlife create potentially dangerous conditions to guests and park personnel. Another area to the west of the flesh pit is called Fondue Village. It was said to be a complex cave system made out of an earwax-like substance. Okay, now let's take a look at this feature named the Well of the Abhumans. This is known to be one of the bladders of the flesh pit. The Well of the Abhumans is the name given to a unique fluid duct that was discovered in the early 1980s by work crews installing telecom lines within the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. The relatively small tube was notable in that it was comprised of tissue types previously unencountered, serving a role in a then unknown anatomical system within the pit. Once the duct was cut open and the upper duct was sealed, it was found to be saturated with formaldehyde. After a few hours of a slow descent, a bladder-like organ was encountered by an explorer, which was filled with a dense sponge-like tissue. Also found were the bodies of 3 unidentifiable mammals in a severe state of decay, but otherwise preserved by the formaldehyde. Though the proportions and musculature of the bodies initially led investigators to believe they were human remains, additional investigation revealed musculoskeletal features wholly different from any known hominid. Later, radiological dating of bone samples from the bodies indicated a startling disparity between the 3 corpses. One was dated to the 10th century AD, one was dated to over 35,000 BC, and the final body having bones entirely consisting of a dense plastic polymer. As you peer into the well, please do not deposit coins, trash, or other foreign debris inside. Certain materials may damage or discolor the concrete wall surrounding the open duct. We also have the geobiological feature named the circus clown chimus. Though it may look like a colourful ice cream birthday cake covered in a glazed frosting, this calcified formation is anything but festive. In 1976, a group of performers accidentally fell into the upper maw of the entry orifice. While the soft flesh of the pit's throat somewhat cushioned their fall, the unexpected dilation of an epiglottal fold allowed them to slide down into a then unreinforced area of the pit. Rescue personnel were able to locate the performers inside a digestive sac a few hours later, but by that time, all 50 performers had already begun being digested by the pit. Rescue personnel cut them out, correctly guessing that many were still alive. An experimental antacid spray was discharged on top of the gooey, shrieking mound, but it was too late. Instead of reducing the acidic effects on the partially digested bodies of the performers, the experimental compound flash calcified them into the multicolored formation that you see in front of you. Though hauntingly beautiful, the circus clown chimus is a somber reminder of why it is always important to observe all safety instructions and to always stay on marked trails while visiting the interior of the superorganism contains what geobiologists call a distributed heuristic hierarchical nervous system. This chart shows how this sort of neural arrangement functions. Surrounding the center of the superorganism is a vast ring of neural tissue, resembling an organic fiber optic bundle. This central ring connects 5 enormous miles wide, concentrated brain regions, which are theorized to comprise a central nervous system used by the superorganism to simultaneously think as well as manage the many hundreds of miles of the mystery flesh pit's anatomy. This management system is further divided into hundreds of superganglia, managed by each pentalobe, broadly categorized into alpha, beta, and gamma variants. Alpha ganglia manage thousands of local nerve clusters, responsible for executive functions such as motor control, digestive management, lymph production, vascular management, and dozens of other functions. Gamma ganglia are almost the reverse counterpart to the alpha ganglia. Gamma ganglia manage the many thousands of nerve and sensory receptors throughout the mystery flesh pit, translating this enormous amount of information into usable data for the central pentalobe nervous system. Unique are the many beta ganglia clusters, which seem to fill in a sort of local memory function, which has no direct analog in mainstream biology. These beta ganglia clusters exhibit phenomenal storage capability for stimuli response memory, and were often harvested for their biotechnological application. The flesh pit also has eyes. In one expedition, which aimed to plot a horizontal navigable course from the main entry orifice to an extremity of the superorganism, they discovered an organ at the furthest extremity of their route, which was determined to be an optical sensory organ, or eye. This eye, determined to be one of many thousands along a band of the superorganism's upper mantle, was measured to be approximately 1.2 kilometers in diameter, with multiple optic nerve connections, a retinal region many times larger than a football field, and a highly evolved lens configuration, consisting over 24 discrete lens and filter elements. This large eye organ, as well as the thousands of identical organs, appeared to be generally retracted into an inner carapace lining, which separated these organs from the direct rock face of the surrounding geological strata. So let's talk about Anodyne, the company in charge of mining in the flesh pit. Throughout the 1970s up until 2007, Anodyne continued to mine and dig in the depths of the superorganism. But what exactly were they mining for? It was a number of things. First is a certain material called oscurolite. Oscurolite, also known as black bone, was named due to its very dark coloring. This coloring is a result of a dense concentration of microscopic, helically oriented carbon strands. Oscurolite occurs within the center of certain mineral bone structures within the superorganism. It is theorized by ventriologists to function as a rigid reinforcement or a primary skeleton to complement the more conventional skeleton system, which serves serves as a more pliable secondary skeleton. Oscurolite exhibits a range of incredible material properties, such as structural rigidity higher than steel, a strength-to-weight ratio 50 times higher than titanium, thermal insulation capabilities greater than aerospace-grade ceramic composites, all while being incredibly lightweight. The second substance is corpusite, or pearls, as they are often referred to. They are iridescent mineral formations which exhibit exceptionally perfect spherical geometry. They have become invaluable as precision components in certain optical and measurement applications. Additionally, the corpusite exhibits a secondary property of superconductivity at a temperature range of -38 to over 1100 degrees Celsius. These spheres are commonly found in loose clusters within some tissue structures of the superorganism. The function of corpusite is hypothesized to serve some role in the pit's nervous system, but this was not fully understood. The third and by far the most prevalent and well-known substance to the public was amniotic ballast, mentioned earlier. The miraculous silky fluid was extracted from deep within the pit and was refined on-site before being transferred to off-site facilities for additional processing. The refined amniotic ballast was concentrated and combined with other materials sourced from the pit to cure a range of ailments ranging from general malaise, mental degradation, to growths of several carcinogenic tumors. When consumed recreationally, refined amniotic ballast fluid created a very strong and pleasant psychotropic effect, altogether different from alcohol, cannabis, opioids, or hallucinogens. Many different products were manufactured by Anodyne, each exploiting the properties of the ballast. One of the best-selling products were the VitaSalve line of consumer-grade OTC supplements. Another such product was Coke Heartthrob, which was first introduced on Valentine's Day in 1985 as a limited edition. The defining ingredient in Coke Heartthrob was, of course, amniotic ballast, harvested from special glands deep within the flesh pit. The potent aphrodisiacal properties of amniotic ballast were diminished by heavily diluting the chemical before adding it to the beverage. But Coke Heartthrob still developed a notorious reputation for its unusual intoxicating effects. There were many other materials, gels, gases, and liquids mined from the pit that are worth more than their weight in gold, according to one mine worker, Andre Martinez. He describes his experience of working in the flesh pit. I was 17 when I signed on with the company to work a full tour. The money they promised for 9 months of work was more than I could have made in a lifetime of any other career. The full mining crew is 18 men, including 2 to 3 mining engineers, a medic, 2 mechanics, 1 venturial tech, 2 company men to oversee everything, and 10 hired hands like me. You sign up for 9 months at a time, split up into 3-month stints with 2-week breaks in between. flights are tight and cramped. My position had been vacated the year before because the last guy got crushed under a tissue catchment bucket. A giant steel-walled tray weighing half a ton used to catch slop and other meat before it falls on your working area. He bled out because it took hours for an ambulance to get to the location. In the 9 months I worked that rig, I had a few very close calls to getting crushed. Most of the men I worked with had some sort of permanent injury, lost fingers, blown shoulders or knees. The more experience, the more injuries. Even in our suits connected to the refrigerated air, it was more than 100 degrees. It's pitch black everywhere down there, so you rely on your helmet lights, work lights, and the rig lights. Working down there isn't at all like working in a cave or a mine. Everything is wet, slippery, disgusting, and miserable. Nothing is flat or walkable. You have to fight a feeling of terror. Men weren't meant to be down there in the innards of a monster. But I figure that's why the company paid them so much. Besides mining operations, there was also the task of maintaining the structures inside the pit, such as enclosed walkways and reinforced trail paths. The interior of the Mystery Flesh Pit is, at many times, an environment completely unsuited to human life. Park Service trail engineers work to reinforce and develop internal cavities of the pit into safe and pleasant areas for park visitors and their families. This service is most often outsourced to one of the park's corporate partners, who supply the highly specialized tools and equipment needed to traverse through the anatomy of the Mystery Flesh Pit. To become a trail engineer requires extensive knowledge of caving, geology, and macrobiology, as well as a well-developed resistance to phagophobia. Stent frames are set up by the engineers as they descend into undeveloped organs. These stents are later widened by larger crews of engineers. This pamphlet would have been handed out to investors at one of the larger shareholder conventions held annually by the Anodyne Corporation to boost market confidence with the new mining technology. The MMP3 Mobile Mining Platform, also known as mining rigs, were key in the resource exploitation of the Mystery Flesh Pit. These massive machines had a price tag of over $300 million to make, and only 7 were built. Today it's suspected there are at least 1 or 2 of these machines still around, although their whereabouts remain unknown. The machine is designed specifically to cut and cauterize soft and cartilaginous tissues as it traverses forward. It offers resource harvesting at 10 times the rate of traditional venereal mining methods. The modular body structure is supported by an articulated central spine, which connects to hard points within each body section. This scheme balances stress throughout the body while increasing maneuverability in 3 spatial dimensions. Epoxy-coated steel is extensively used on all exterior venturial-facing surfaces, guaranteeing high impact resistance, low corrosion, and high wear resistance. On July 4, 2007, at 9:41 p.m., a resulting in over 750 fatalities and 1,800 major casualties. In addition, the weeks following the incident saw approximately 18,000 individuals from the surrounding area seeking medical and psychological treatment for ailments including breathing problems, chest pains, shortness of breath, nausea, birth defects, hallucination, depression, anxiety, internal bleeding, sore throat and headaches, as a direct result of contact with gastric ejecta in the atmosphere. Investigators concluded this disaster was a premature geobiological consumption event caused by the failure of critical park infrastructure to constrain the gastric, motor, and neurological actions of the superorganism. It was concluded these failures were the direct result of negligent practices by the site operation contractor, Anodyne. Survey suggested the superorganism may span many hundreds of miles beneath the Permian Basin horizontally, with scientists speculating the organism may extend vertically into the upper mantle of the Earth's interior. While not fully understood, tissue samples suggest the organism contains systems with remarkable similarity to mammal life. The feeding cycle is believed to occur on a complex, long-term schedule of dormancy and feeding activity. The depth at which the organism extends indicates that the organism is several 100,000 years old. It's unknown what the natural lifespan of the species is, or whether the superorganism represents a mature or developing example of its species. The incident timeline of the event begins at 10:29 a.m. on July 4th. Here are the log entries. Unusually high rains forced park administrators to cancel a July 4th concert and fireworks display scheduled to take place on the surface park grounds. Many visitors who had already purchased tickets to the event became upset, and a decision was made to extend the park hours until midnight for those who had purchased the event tickets. 8 p.m. was the normal closing time for the park. There is a typical shift change of staff in the control room. Harvesting crews working in the western extremities of the organism set a new extraction record to meet a quota for bonuses in time for the holiday weekend. Control room operators initiate a routine system self-test and discover a relay fault error resulting from increased electrical demand from mining equipment and tourist infrastructure. An operator logs the fault and notifies an on-duty engineer. Water drainage from rain into the entry orifice begins to collect in the sand gullet. Drainage pumps are automatically activated by a sensor system, but it fails to initialize due to the relay fault. An emergency backup pump running on a separate emergency circuit is automatically activated. A critical alarm in the control room alerts operators that the emergency water pump has ceased and is inoperative. The under-lubrication of the pump's impeller bushings resulted in corrosion due to the moist interior of the flesh pit environment. Technicians arrive at a primary pump station to discover response. Technicians repair the relay fault as control staff reset the park's electrical grid. The grid is offline for 45 seconds. The automatic PA system does not notify guests, since it is scheduled to automatically shut down at the normal 8 p.m. closing time. The temporary darkness causes many guests to panic and return to the main lift at the lower visitor center. A choking reaction from the superorganism begins 31 seconds into the electrical reset. The main trunk violently flexes. Tremors registered over 200 miles away. Lack of power to the hydraulic arming rams causes irreparable damage to several sections of infrastructure. As the electrical system finishes the reboot cycle, the dynamic hydraulic actuators supporting the lower visitor center overcorrect for stability. It does not account for the shift in the wall lining in which the visitor center is anchored. 2 of the 6 structural supports are torn from their foundations, which causes the visitor center to fall 20 degrees off vertical. The master alarm is automatically triggered. Response teams are given the order to mobilize. Park rangers are dispatched to rescue groups of visitors trapped in partially collapsed tunnels and trails. Continued movement of the organism, combined with the rainwater, causes one of the upper entry supports to slip. An outbound elevator makes an emergency stop, stranding over 24 visitors. Dilation anchors begin retracting to keep the entry orifice open. A master failsafe is activated, causing 20,000 liters of a paralyzing agent, aconitine, to be injected into the superorganism via a distributed network of relay stations located throughout its internal anatomy. Tremors and convulsions intensify as the entry-gantry connection to the lower visitor center detaches completely. The lower visitor center begins to collapse downwards into the nexial cavity. Muscle contractions of the nexial cavity begin to exert substantial pressure on the lower visitor center. The prime labial junction west of the septum falls flexes into an open position, releasing a torrent of lactogastric chyma into the dorsal trunk. It is likely that this was a reaction to the aconitine injections. Spasms force the caustic chyma through the nexial cavity and up towards the surface orifice. Guests attempting to flee the stalled elevator near to the entry orifice attempt to climb out, but are ultimately unsuccessful due to torrential rains, causing the surface to become very slippery. Many end up falling back into the moor. The chyma erupts from the surface orifice in a geyser several hundred meters in height. Large pieces of undigested organic matter crush several vehicles. Following the several minutes long ejector event, a deep, loud roar erupts from the entry orifice as ground tremors intensify further. Large extremities begin surfacing through bedrock and soil, approximately 30 to 120 kilometers from the entry orifice. The acid smell of the gastric ejecta can be detected as far as Odessa, Texas. Park service vehicles containing park employees and several guests attempt to ascend through the entry orifice tube. Spasms crush one of the vehicles and suck the other two vehicles back into the nexial cavity and down into a digestive organ. These vehicles were presumed to be destroyed. The lower visitor center structural integrity is critically compromised, resulting in total collapse. All communication is lost. Spasms of the superorganism begin to noticeably subside. Response teams begin to descend into the surface orifice to attempt rescue operations. The response team locates the visitor group which had attempted to escape from the stalled elevator. Most are dead. The remainder are mortally wounded and partially digested due to caustic gastric ejecta. Radio contact established with a Ranger vehicle trapped within Oyster's shame, but due to ventricle closure, no rescue strategy could be made before complete mastication occurred. It is now past midnight into the next day. 3 interpit creatures are identified to have been ejected onto the surface. 15 visitors are injured, and 7 are hunted by the interpit creatures. Park staff managed to kill all 3. National Guard helicopters began delivering supplies and personnel. A field hospital is constructed to care for wounded visitors and staff. Initial damage surveys report catastrophic destruction of internal park infrastructure. Pit geobiology has dramatically changed in hazard level. Ground personnel begin assembling a pump system to inject industrial sedatives into the superorganism. Transport trucks containing industrial sedatives arrive. For unknown reasons, several injured visitors leave the field hospital and begin walking towards the open pit orifice. Approximately 38 individuals are able to crawl back inside the pit over the course of 8 hours. None are recovered. Radio transmissions from a trapped Ranger vehicle stops. It's speculated that other small groups of visitors and staff remained trapped. That is the end of the event log. How many people were successfully removed from the trip, and are any still alive today? While regulations prevent us from knowing exactly how many people suffered amalgamation, it's estimated that fewer than half a dozen ever survived the treatment process to recovery. Recovery, though, is a loaded word here. The treatment, co-developed by Baylor Medical Center and the Anodyne Corporation, was highly dependent on the nature of the amalgamation, and seems to have been most successful with combined masses containing only human tissue. The procedure for treatment involved removing the brain and as much of the spinal cord as possible from the amalgamation. When possible, extraction of other organs such as eyes, cochlear tissues, tongues, and larynx would later enable the recovered patient a sensory experience much closer to that which they had previously enjoyed. Since medical technology is still unable to replicate the organic sensory quality of human sensory tissues. However, due to the difficulty and cost of this additional procedure, this rarely happened. Once extracted, the brain of the individual patient would be placed in a nutrient salve and connected to a proprietary interface and life support system developed by Anodyne. Through a rudimentary It's important to note, though, that despite the claims Anodyne made at the time, the quality of life of these individuals was horrific and incredibly expensive for family members to maintain. The full procedure, if even possible, often exceeded costs of several $1 million to perform, with the end result being a room-sized nest of life support plumbing and computer equipment prone to overheating. When the company was dissolved in 2008, much of this research became the property of the US government, which has repeatedly rejected requests for more information on this issue. It is unknown how many, if any, of these individuals are still alive today. Is Anodyne still operational? Anodyne was found to be at fault and was formally dissolved in 2009 following its bankruptcy filings, with its remaining debts and liquidation being managed by the reorganized Permian Basin Recovery Corporation. Through political scheming, the Permian Basin Recovery Corporation was awarded an exclusive and indefinite contract to oversee the management of the superorganism containment project,